ahead of you. They're already for V6 and you're not. So now both the SIP signaling and the infrastructure needs to handle some sort of protocol translation and address translation for you to continue communicating. It could be that your network is generically, your infrastructures are both ready for V6, but your IMS infrastructure is not. So therefore your end user points are coming up with a regular VoIP session request and it's via IPv6, but your IMS infrastructures are still V4. Well, you then need something like a session border controller or a box in there to do that protocol translation so that the signaling can remain V4 for some period of time. So those are some of the nuances that you have to kind of work through, especially related to VoIP peering, as you move into the V6 space.
Any other questions? Looks like we're getting close to the end. Are there other topics or points that any of the folks want to make?
Well, I'll make a point because the topic of the talk talks about peering and talks about, and we've had other talks here about telecom hotels and the like. And I'll make a comment from our network's point of view. Is that the only places now that we look at expanding our network are where we see V6 enabled peering points, where we actually see V6 capable networks. There's no expansion into a place now that's only V4. And that's just the level of seriousness that we take V6 as we look at network expansion. It's just a simple point that actually sort of matches some of the earlier talks about telecom hotels and internet exchange points over.
So Doug, if I can, I have a question actually for the audience, right? So, so we all have networks of some shape or form in this room, right? So, how many of, who else is V6ing, you know, at the moment? And you know, do you have any thoughts or comments about what, you know? I knew you'd raise your hand. You know, I mean, has anybody, you know, have any comments or reflections on what your personal experience is? And if you haven't, I'd be interested to know.
What's your plan?
Yeah, why, you know, what's kind of what's holding you back? What's you know, why haven't you yet?
I have a question here about the Tier 1 providers on the table. Like you guys have V6 already backbones enabled, but we don't have a peering connection between each other, V6. So, me being a customer, let's say, of NTT, how can I reach today V6 customers on another percent?
No, we very much do have peering connections with each other. When I said native access for like, let's say a company comes to us and says, I want a native V6 gig port, that means we're not routing them V4. They can't see, or their network's not cluttered with V4 traffic, or they don't have to worry about whether they got a quad A or a single A record. They just have access to the V6 internet. But that's not just NTT's V6 internet, that's all of our V6 networks. Like I was pointing out, that CADA map will show, you know, where we're at, and they did that by going out and trace routing to thousands of different sites on the V6 network. It routes just like the V4 network. There are public and private peering arrangements. So yeah, it's an internet. It just runs on a different protocol.
The same goes for our V6. I mean, the definition of the word internet is a collection of interconnected networks. Cody's cloud, Brett's cloud, my cloud, everybody's cloud. I think our count's at about 232 different adjacencies at the moment between our network and other networks. These days, you couldn't have said this maybe 4 years ago, but it's clean now. You get a connection, you've got a full IP routed connection to all of the V6 space. So you've got every route from whichever commercial entity you're connecting to in the V6 world. That may not be the case in research networks, university research networks, where they explicitly run segmented areas. But in the commercial world, buying a connection from us or from anybody else, you're getting a full view, a full interconnect of everybody.
So your V6 tables, how many prefixes it has as of today, then, approximately?
1186 as of last Thursday.
About 1,000 roughly, so probably about the same as yours, so a little over 1,000.
I think ours is about 1,100, I think, including the internal routes.
Yeah.
There are websites out there that actually show what the routing tables currently are, and that's going to give you the general peering. addresses that are exchanged, right? So as an individual provider, if you go look at those tables, I think they actually list the IPv6 network size right around 870 or something like that. But if you look at your own internal Tier 1 network, you're going to have some internal routes as well. And that's why each one of us would say we're seeing routes probably in the 1,000, 1,100 range.
To contrast that on the V6 world, ours is around a quarter or 250,000.
V4.
And I'm sorry, in the V4 world, yeah.
The one thing that I think that maybe be behind part of your question is, where can I go when I get my IPv6 connection? And that's what we were talking about. It's important for the services to begin to convert and all the end user websites to convert, because the Tier 1 backbones are connected. But where can you go? So one of your tests, and I don't know a website off the top of my head, but from what I understand, most of the sites that are available on the V6 world are Japanese sites, and you may not want to go to most of them, if you understand what I mean. But you can get there. It's the key. If you get a connection to the V6 network, you can go to those sites.
One of the things was, I didn't really answer this question, was like, what was the thing that frustrated you? Well, we did this so long ago. One of the things was just support for things. We wanted to offer our customer managed firewall. Well, it just wasn't there in 03. But now that core is still there. But if you look at YouTube and those guys, these guys just don't have a web server out there that's running dual stack Apache 2. They have an elaborate local server load balancing and global server load balancing infrastructure. Well, Foundry is still, I shouldn't even use vendor names and pick on people, but as far as a global server load balancing infrastructure, there's certain vendors from their, most of those tricks are done by a DNS, for example, just don't support that. I mean, YouTube, I wouldn't say they would love to, but would probably be more than happy to do it if some of their infrastructure supported it so they could. Because when you get deeper and deeper and deeper, there are still some limitations in vendor support for IPv6 for some of the more elaborate things that, to be honest, at this point, not very many people are pushing them to do or doing. Things like global server load balancing, stuff like that. So I think, I mean, Eves, I think a lot of us know Eves. He was always a big proponent of, look, we got to get content out there. Because once there's content, then we're going to see the amount of traffic, especially with Vista that prefers V6 over V4. If YouTube has a quad A and an A record, and Vista downloads that particular laptop is dual stacked, it's going to go get it over V6. You'll see the amount of traffic on the V6 network skyrocket.
So part of it might be, as a community of companies that are in this mode, we got to both look at what we're doing collectively, but we also then have to start asking those companies we work with that provide those end services to say, hey, where is this on your roadmap, so that we collectively are starting the wave of migration. Because my big concern is, where are my customers going to go if I convert them to V6? It might be great because I've satisfied my need for IP addresses for end users, for instance on the wireless side. I got them on my network, and I can maybe go to my internal proxy services, but if they can't go to the internet, are they going to stay with my service, or are they going to go somewhere else where they can? Well, if they go somewhere else, are they still getting a V4 address that is still just a matter of time before they can't go there on their user? It's a chicken and egg thing, but as a core infrastructure provider, we have to be out there leading the way, getting the infrastructure straight. Yes.
I don't know if anyone else here is from our content company from Microsoft. We have a lot of content. We'd love to get out in V6, and I think the point you were making earlier, the global and local load balance appliances, no site at scale can exist with just a single web service. You have to employ that technology. That technology is not mature. The ASICs that are out there don't support it. The push to the people who make those appliances to use it, they're not doing it. They don't see it outside. And we have a similar chicken and egg from a, do I devote dev resources to cover 0.1% of the user base, or do I cover to 99.9? So it's that until it's easy to go there, content may not go there.
Have you been pushing them? Because you have as much weight as anyone, I would think.
We have a lot of weight. We're